It's now time for The Sit Down with Don Tony.
The Sit Down, where Don Tony talks one-on-one with his followers.
What are you looking at?
About the world of pro wrestling, pop culture, and so much more.
The Sit Down with Don Tony.
And now, your host, Don Tony.
Thank God for coffee. How's everybody doing? Hope you're having a wonderful weekend. It is July 9th, 2023. Welcome to this edition of The Sit Down. I am the original, the only Don Tony, and you all are the original, the family. Too much coincidence? Don Tony, the family, sit downs. In the future, I'll tell you all a cute story. Something that I was told about 11 months ago. Actually, no, 10 months ago. Because my wedding anniversary, believe it or not, is in a little less than 2 months. It was right after my wedding anniversary when we went on our honeymoon, and that prick, Tony D'Angelo, did not come outside for a little shaking of the hands, a little photo. Too busy. Stunats. By the way, I think Tony D'Angelo may return to NXT this Tuesday. By the way, did you hear? Yeah, we talked about it last week. We talked about it the week before. The Judgement Day are on their way to NXT. All 4 members will be there this Tuesday. Let's see if Trick Williams ends up taking Dom. Let's see if we get Carmelo Hayes, Finn Balor 2 at the Great American Bash. Could we see Lyra Valkyria versus Rhea Ripley? It's possible. Not Tuesday, though, for the simple reason that they already have like 5 matches announced. But shit's going to be going down this Tuesday, and I'm looking forward to it. William Erickson with the 5 spot, the super thanks. Thank you, my friend. I appreciate it. And, yeah, welcome to the family. Welcome to La Nostra Familia. It is Sunday night. This weekend went way too fast. I can't believe tomorrow it's back to work. I call this work too, but it's more fun and play than anything else. But, you know, for anybody who's live, that might be newer to the show, every Sunday we do a show called The Sit Down. And it's pretty simple. We sit down and you ask the questions, you make the comments, and I talk about it. All I ask is that if you want to be part of the show, just be live in the chat room. It is free. In fact, if you're not a subscriber yet to the channel, please do so. Definitely helps us, and it's free. And I say us, it's because the family. You know, if we start getting stagnation over here, then unfortunately we'll be forced to go back to audio only with everything. But I'm having fun over here. And, yeah, we got a couple of pictures to show you tonight. Super Chat came in about 30 minutes before it went live. And I'll shout out who it is in a moment. I don't have the name in front of me, but they said, you know, DT, go look this up before you go live. And I'm glad that I did, because it is very interesting what's going on Twitter right now between Jim Cornette and Matt Hardy. So we'll get into that a little bit. One quick plug, a cheap plug before we start the show. This Tuesday, it is official. Kev Castle and yours truly will be live once again for your next special episode of the Don Tony Show. This one's going to be interesting. I mean, they're all interesting, but this one's going to be interesting. If you're part of our Patreon family, you could be part of the live show and get an opportunity to send in a question for us to discuss. But one of the things that Kevin and I are going to be talking about, and it's good that I mention this now because somebody asked earlier about Karrion Kross. Karrion Kross, about to celebrate 1 year being back with the WWE, actually sparked this topic that we're going to have on Tuesday. We're going to take the bigger name-valued wrestlers on the WWE roster and on the AEW roster. I almost said AWA. I don't know why. And what we're going to do is we're going to look back quickly over the last 12 months, and we're going to discuss if their stock has gone up or if it's gone down. You know, when you take a step back and you realize there are quite a few people whose stock has risen significantly in 12 months. And then when you take a step back and you think about it, there are quite a few who have taken a step back. I don't want to name any individual names right now, but it might be more prevalent on the AEW side, and that's not taking a shot on AEW, but when you start actually thinking about specific names, it's quite a bit. And since I brought up Karrion Kross, I'll say this right now. In my opinion, no, I don't think his stock has gone down in a year. If you remember a year ago when he returned, you know, we were still in mask withdrawal, the helmet. You know, there was really nothing going on. I mean, outside, I mean, he was doing a lot of jiu-jitsu and working out and getting his body in even better shape. He was doing a little bit of work with, was he going to do Lucha Underground? Not Lucha, Control Your Narrative. You know, I think in 12 months, Karrion Kross's worth now is better than a year ago. Because a year ago, the majority of people out there, and I'm just going to say it, the majority of people out there is like, why are you bringing him back? Like, why? A year later, you're seeing more and more people saying, why are you treating him like that? Why are you jobbing him out? When you have people talk like that, that means they actually care and they have a little bit of investment in the person. So Kross is not damaged goods. Somebody asked earlier. He definitely could still improve. And listen, you don't want to go to LA Knight formula. It's a little bit different with LA Knight. LA Knight has this connection with the fans, and we've talked for months about his attitude and a little reminiscent inspiration from some wrestlers from yesteryear, which is nothing wrong with whatsoever. I see a super chat came in about LA Knight, so we'll be talking about that as well. So if you want to ask a question for me to answer, all I ask in the chat room is write in capital letters the word question so I could spot it quicker. If you have a comment, just write comment before it. If you super chat, obviously they're not required, but they are appreciated. It helps. It helps more than you know, because, you know, YouTube, ask around. You know, we'd be lucky if we could buy a Starbucks with some of the episodes that we do. So if you do it, don't feel pressured to, but if you do, you're always going to get a little VIP treatment. And some ask questions before we start the show because they want a little bit of a kickoff that way. And I think a good way to kick this off, since we're talking about LA Knight, let's get right into it. Ronnie C with the 10 spot. Thank you, Ronnie. What's up, DT? Got a question for you. Got a good one for you, excuse me. Kevin Nash is criticizing LA Knight, calling him a blatant ripoff of The Rock, even saying that all he's missing is the finally intro. Finally. I sound more Jewish than I sound like The Rock, right? When I do that, finally. Would you like filter fish? Filter fish. Give me an arugula. Give me a pastrami on the eye. What say you, DT? Now, this came in a half hour before we went live, so I got to think about it a little bit. I did go on Twitter and looked at the video clip of what Kevin Nash said. Listen, Kevin Nash has a right to his opinion. I just personally think it's a wrong opinion. My first thought when I heard Kevin Nash say that was Stone Cold Shark Boy, Dean Roll. Former friend of mine, had a blast when he was doing some USA Pro stuff here in New York. That infamous hotline night that I wish I would have recorded, that will always go in hotline lore, what went down that night with Shark Boy on my hotline. Stone Cold Shark Boy. And Kevin Nash was there. Sure, it was satire. There was no issues with it. Steve Austin actually got a kick out of it. If people are responding to it and it works and it's not a mockery and people are enjoying it, I mean, you look back, we were just talking about superstar Billy Graham and how he inspired Austin Idol and Jesse the Body Ventura and Scott Steiner and Hulk Hogan and many others. What's wrong with that? What's wrong with that? So, you know, he's doing what the fans like today. There is absolutely nothing wrong with it. I even thought of Eugene, you know, in the last couple of days. Eugene was paying tribute to all legends. You look at Duke Hudson in NXT in a much smaller scale. He does a lot of Hogan stuff. Oh, come on. I mean, why is this a big deal? The crowd is popping. The NWO was, do you want to say a ripoff of a Japanese storyline? No, they were inspired by the Japanese storyline. I mean, let's be honest. I mean, Kevin Nash, Scott Hall, and Hulk Hogan were not trying to act like some Japanese guys. They weren't going out there, ayo, we NWO for life. No, they were their own characters. LA Knight is inspired by legends of yesteryear, and he's putting his own little twist on it. That's why he doesn't say, finally. That's why he doesn't say, and that's the bottom line. You know, there's nothing wrong with it. That's just my opinion. I mean, listen, Kevin Nash has every right to his opinion. I disagree with it completely. Totally disagree with that. Totally. Mikey Rivello with a $5 super chat. Thank you, Mikey. Yes, I did my research. I appreciate you sending this early. DT, I'm sending this early so you can check it out before your show. Please talk about Matt Hardy and Jim Cornette's online war over Hangman Page, the Young Bucks, and Kenny Omega. All right. William Erickson says, with a comment, LA Knight is unlike all the Dave Meltzer spot monkeys. That's why he's so over. Not every wrestling fan wants the promo and the drama and the storyline. Some people want 5-star matches. Some people love the Japanese style. Some people love the hardcore style. Some people don't like either one. That's the beauty about pro wrestling. You know, can't be Cornette's version of wrestling, and it can't be Meltzer's version of wrestling. You get a little bit of everything. So, you know, I respectfully disagree. You know, a lot of those wrestlers, maybe they're not as over on a major scale, you know, compared to LA Knight as far as audible crowd reaction, but, you know, each his own. Listen, I remember back in the 90s when I was hardcore ECW fan. I'll always pay tribute. And I had a lot of people that were like, fuck you, that hardcore violent shit. You know, oh, there's no art and chair bashing each other in the head. You know, but meanwhile, you had your Rey Mysterios, you had your Benoits, the Dean Malenkos, the Eddie Guerreros. You know, they had good wrestling on there as well. Of course, it was overshadowed by the hardcore violence. That's what made it so distinctively different. But you had your Shane Douglas who could actually work, Terry Funk. We had some cameos, you know, Hot Stuff Eddie Gilbert, God rest his soul, early on. You know, One Night Only on Anderson, beautiful Bobby Eaton, God rest his soul. You know, we had memories, and a lot of them don't have a lot of hardcore in it. So, but getting back to Mikey about this, okay. This kind of segues with what we just talked about as far as Meltzer's spot monkeys. There is a little bit of an online war going on right now on Twitter between Matt Hardy and Jim Cornette. And I'm going to say something that's probably going to upset some people out there that don't like Cornette. And trust me, it's not about taking sides right now, but I want to show everybody, and for those on audio only, I will read it to you, what was said today. And then I'm going to say something afterwards that honestly, a lot of people are not going to like, but it is the stone cold truth. All right, let's pull this up. Earlier today, there was some tweets online, I guess, showing praise for the Elite. And we all know the dissension between the Elite and CM Punk, and even with FTR to an extent. And Matt Hardy voiced some comments about it. And in response to somebody's tweet, Matt Hardy said, now, I actually should read the fan's tweet. This is someone by the name of Ryan that says, I know it's cool to hate on the Bucks and Hangman if you're a Punk/Collision fan, but not from me. Give those guys their flowers, meaning Hangman Page, Kenny Omega, Young Bucks. Okay. Off the record, everyone, I think everybody's been giving, wrestling's been giving him their flowers for the last 4 years. Let's be honest. Well, anyway, Matt Hardy says this, and I quote, "Between this and the toxic Cornette cult, these guys don't get the adoration that they truly deserve. The diehard elite fans are phenomenal and get why they're special. But there's a huge chunk of fans that fail to give them the credit they deserve. Give these guys their flowers." We will revisit Matt Hardy's comment in a moment because I'm going to reveal something that some people are not going to like. And then Matt Hardy did not do this intentionally, but we'll get back to that. So once Jim Cornette saw this, Jim Cornette responds with, "Geez, Matt, I can understand selling your soul for rock and roll, but selling it for Adderall? Even if you have to abandon your principles and verbally fillet these childish cretins for your check, leave my fans alone. It's not their fault. Tony's not paying them enough to lie." So Matt Hardy responds back with, "Geez, Jim, haven't sold my soul. I'm sticking to my principles and telling truths. I feel morally obligated to do right by my friends, although that's probably foreign to you. I earn a check because I'm great at what I do and still employable. Keep on seeding dissension amongst fans with your shtick. It's too sweet." Okay. If I had to make a choice between enjoying Matt Hardy's work or Jim Cornette's work, this is me talking, Don Tony, I would choose Matt Hardy. I am a lifelong Matt Hardy fan. Yes, when he was at rock bottom, we would always call him out, make fun of him, tease him. Absolutely. But the guy is overcome. And not only is he overcome for himself, but he is very, very responsible for Jeff Hardy's recovery. I have a lot of respect for Matt Hardy, but I will say this. Matt Hardy made a huge fucking mistake today. And I'll tell you why. I want to bring up both of Matt Hardy's comments. And I am a Matt Hardy fan. And I have a lot of respect for Matt Hardy. But I have to say this, Matt, you are so fucking wrong. And I'm going to prove it right now. This nobody from New York, this greaseball fat Italian is going to show you why. First of all, let's bring up this remark again. He says, keep seeding dissension amongst fans with your shtick. It's too sweet. My friends, if you go on Twitter right now, Jim Cornette is trending. When you go on, click on I should have just shared my screen and let you see it live, but you go look on your own. Jim Cornette is trending right now. And all you see are supporters of the Elite and AEW fans all ripping the shit out of Jim Cornette. Not just respectfully disagreeing. And not, you don't have to wear a suit and tie and be an altar boy when you talk about it. But you got the usual, oh, you remember when he said the racist thing. You remember when he shamed this person. Remember when he sexually this. Remember when this. And this, I hope he dies and this and that. And now I want to go back to Matt Hardy's first comment. The diehard Elite fans are phenomenal and get why they're special. Matt, when you set out a trap, a rat trap, you put out a mouse trap. You want to catch rats. You want to catch all the sewer rats going around, which you call the Cornette cult. Understand something, Matt. When you put down the rat trap with peanut butter and cheese and everything else, you should have realized that besides the rats, all of your pets are going to go for the food as well. All this special elite are the ones showing dissent and division on social media right now. You gave the elite supporters The ones that are hardcore AEW, you gave them a pass go, get out of jail free card to basically say some of the most vile shit about Jim Cornette and his supporters and the fact that they criticize Tony Khan and AEW. The hardcore elite are showing tonight that they are sewer. What the fuck have the elite been doing for the last 12 months online through journalists? Division. CM Punk is a cancer. CM Punk cannot be trusted. You see Wade Keller now? Wade Keller is starting to retreat. Wade Keller, he's cute. I don't mean it like that. You might get the wrong idea. He's cute. For months and months and months. My sources in AEW say that if CM Punk comes back, that people are going to be walking out. He never talked about the other side that actually likes CM Punk. Now, he's hearing from too many people in AEW that CM Punk is actually getting along with everybody at the shows. So he's fucking forced to put that smelly tail between his legs and admit that CM Punk is actually getting along. But he adds the 3 sissy little sentences that he would never do on the flip side. When he talks about the positive stuff, go look it up on Torch's website right now. Everybody calls out Meltzer, but you see a lot of these lightweights in the journalist and podcast world that wouldn't dare criticize Wade Keller because they like him. Wade Keller, when talking positive about CM Punk today, added the cute little sissy sentences saying that, oh, well, keep in mind that there are people on the opposite side that still do not feel this and do not CM Punk and were removed from collision to avoid. You got to put buts. Whenever it's a good thing, it's got to be buts. Whenever it's a bad thing about AEW, there's got to be buts. That's what I am going to talk about this Wednesday on Dynamite. You know, you see all these journalists literally masturbating AEW whenever something is negative. The ratings go down 29%. Oh, the second ever episode of Dynamite went down 29%. Oh, Saturday went this. Oh, people go out on Saturdays. Proven fact. Friday nights have less viewers on TV than Saturday nights. And Sunday nights are usually the most watched night of the week to watch television. Matt Hardy had good intentions. I don't disagree with what Matt Hardy said. But Matt Hardy basically opened the floodgates to give the hardcore elite fans an excuse to be even viler than the Cornette cult. And if you think that I'm wrong, if you think that I'm lying, go on Twitter right now and just click the trending word that says Cornette. And you'll see what I'm talking about. My dad told me when I was 6 years old, you don't justify bad behavior with other bad behavior. And if you want to interpret it with here, you don't justify Cornette or the cult saying, biased, horrible shit. That doesn't give you permission or doesn't make right for you to say biased, horrible shit. And who even said, I support Jim Cornette's podcast? You don't see me doing that shit. You don't see me wishing death on anybody out there. Everybody else is got to make an excuse when numbers don't look good for AEW. I try to come up with solutions. None of these people ever bring up solutions. They'll make excuses instead because excuses sound better. Oh, if AEW keeps the numbers that they have, the demo right now, they're golden. They're golden. Instead of, how can we get those people back? How do we get them in the door and keep them tuning in for the 2 hours? For the first 4 episodes of Collision, people have stuck around for almost the whole 2 hours. They have not had many moments that has been like huge peaks and valleys. That is something totally, we talked about this 2 weeks ago. That is something totally different than any of AEW's programming. You think any of these hand jobbers would bring that up? No. Instead, they got to make an excuse why the number is bad instead of trying to get it back. You go to a wrestling event and they say 30,000 people attended. They don't turn around and say, oh, only 1,800 attended at Regina for Collision yesterday. But of those 1,800, 1,400 were 18 to 34. Stupid. All right. Let's head on over to the chat room. Tristan Sloan, what's up? Do I think Hulk Hogan's heel turn is the greatest of all time? My thoughts. For my lifetime, Hulk Hogan's heel turn is the most important one. I think that would be it, the most important one. There's been other turns, babyface and heel, that were very important as well, but not on the level of Hogan. That just changed WCW, took it to a whole different level. Obviously, it was a joint effort. NWO was just not one guy, but Hogan's heel turn is the most important turn in wrestling history for me, as far as, me watching for my lifetime. Somebody asked earlier if I thought Julie Hart is the sexiest woman in wrestling today. And I got to be honest with you, I have been wanting to do a little old school Black Hearts. We used to do this on the hotline years ago. We did it early days of the podcasting in the mid-2000s. We stopped over the last 10, 15 years because you offend people. Listen, you're always going to offend somebody. But now these days, you offend too many people. Okay, you show a little respect, you pull back. But I've been wanting to do a poll like who is the most attractive woman in WWE or NXT or AEW. And I stopped because I could only imagine, the backlash I'm going to get. Like, why are you mansplaining? Why do you have to make this sexual? And you look at WWE every week and they show, the best social media pictures of the week. And they show a lot of women, and a lot of times they're in their bikinis. They're showing off their bodies, and nobody says a goddamn word about it. If you do, who's the sexiest woman in AEW? Why do you got to make everything sexual? So I try to stay away from it. But I will say this. Is Julie Hart the sexiest woman in wrestling right now? No, not even close. But understand that, me, I'm a little bit older. I'm Italian. I'm into brunettes more than blondes. So, I think recently, I'll give you one, because I noticed when we talk on Tuesdays, and her name has come up 3 times out of the last month, Lola Vice. If people remember when Tiffany Stratton had Tiffy time, when she came out there to celebrate her championship victory, and then it was interrupted by the women, everybody was talking about who had that ass. Outside the ring, there was one woman that had like spandex on. Who had that ass? Everybody was talking about Lola Vice. She knows. She had a laugh about it. But there's a lot of beautiful women. In my opinion, I wouldn't say Julie Hart is the most beautiful woman, but she is extremely attractive. She is not an ugly girl. She's very, very attractive, but I wouldn't put her number one. I'm very curious. If you have the cojones, post in the comment section after the show is over. Who would you say is the sexiest woman in AEW right now? Who's the sexiest woman in WWE right now? Who's the sexiest woman in NXT right now? It's very interesting because I know in NXT, there's a lot of love for Gigi Dolan. There's a lot of love for Cora Jade. There's a lot of love for Lola Vice. I mean, you can go on and on and on. Main roster, it's interesting because main roster, you get a lot of love for Bianca Belair. Then a lot of people love Rhea Ripley's look, which is very intimidating, I think, for, some people out there because it looks like Rhea Ripley. Rhea Ripley comes off as the type that, she probably beat the crap out of you. So, yeah. Some people say Toni Storm. Yeah. Nikita Lyons. You could go on and on and on. Some people say Sky Blue. So, listen, this is not a sexual thing. I don't want anybody to get offended by this. I think you should compliment someone. They didn't just, pay money, take Tony Khan money and go get surgery and look like that. That's a lot of hard work. That's a lot of diet. That's a lot of exercise. That's a lot of restraint. That's a lot of, clean health. You show me someone who, is on meth or smokes or eats a lot of junk food and doesn't go to the gym, and you show me someone that looks as good as those women. They work hard. They deserve credit. You want to do it in a respectful way. They definitely deserve credit for what they do. Just like, when you talk about the guys, we talked about it yesterday, Braun Strowman's return, Drew McIntyre when he came back, when Jinder Mahal came back years ago, Karrion Kross when he made his return. They worked extremely hard to transform their bodies. You look at them before and after they came back, and it's like, whoa, what the fuck? Jinder Mahal, in the history of me covering WWE, I don't think there was ever a time where people didn't talk more about the S word towards Jinder Mahal. I remember people counting the acne on his back. I remember doing shows like, did you see all the acne on his back? Like, people were really going out of their way to question Jinder Mahal's physique. I remember, do you remember? Holy shit. I just realized this. Do you remember when people were zooming in on Jinder Mahal's nipples? My friends, if you don't remember that story, you got to Google it. Back then, people were zooming in on Jinder Mahal's nipples and saying that when you take certain steroids, that it stretches this and does this. People were examining the motherfucker's nipples. I kid you not. They were examining his chest. Booyaka. Last legend, yes. Kevin Milwaukee. Got to know if I saw those fake heavyweights that they tried to make Adam Cole appear that he was lifting. The exquisite camera work was the funniest part of Dynamite this past Wednesday. Listen, I personally do not find anything wrong with Adam Cole's physique. Adam Cole is a smaller guy. Adam Cole is, in my honest opinion, you're never going to have a Devon Dudley moment. You remember when Devon Dudley left WWE and he showed up at TNA and he was like this? I mean, you're never going to see Adam Cole jacked. Adam Cole, be thankful that the guy's back in the ring and he's healthy. When people are like, oh, he can't do moves like he used to because his body's too small. What do you think? He's like fragile like an egg? He doesn't weigh 190 pounds. This is not, like someone who's anorexic or on life support. I personally see nothing wrong with Adam Cole's physique. Yes, it's smaller. Yes, when you look at him posing next to some people, sometimes it looks like, his body is photoshopped from a child or a teenager. But you know what? The head injuries and the physique, I'm thankful that he's back in the ring. If they want to have some fun, lighthearted humor about him lifting Popeye weights, I'm fine with it. There's a lot of little satire going on. Yeah, I saw some ridiculous news article this weekend that fans found an Easter egg in the MJF Adam Cole stuff. And I was like, hey, I'll click on it. Great, I'll talk about it Wednesday. What Easter egg are they talking about? Did I miss something Wednesday? And when I clicked on it, it was the promo from a couple of weeks ago when MJF was spoofing Adam Cole's promo on Karrion Kross. I'm like, these motherfuckers are figuring this out now. I should have asked them, who's going to win Money in the Bank today? I mean, what's up? I saw some news article, I think it was Shitskeeta today, saying that, rumors, our sources tell us that Damian Priest may be leaving Judgment Day. Oh, you think? Like, this is what happens when people don't think on their own and just go along with the tribe. That's something that we talked about, 3.5, 4 weeks ago? Even before Money in the Bank with predictions. Down the line, Damian Priest, they're positioning him. He's going to be a babyface, going to break out, probably feud with Finn Balor, may even happen at WrestleMania if they can milk it long enough. I mean, what are they doing? Sleeping? Benjamin says, oh, come on, DT. Come on, what? What? Is it about Adam Cole? Listen, I say this respectfully. Adam Cole came back from a 7-month injury, was out of the ring for 7 months, came back. This was going to be the conclusion of their AEW reality show. He's back in the ring, kisses Britt Baker, balloons come down, crying in the audience. He's back. Main event's Dynamite against Daniel Garcia, lowest rated quarter of the entire night. What that says to me is that a majority of AEW fans, they'll tune in if he's on. They'll tune in if he's off. You know, when you show me that after 7 months, he's still the lowest quarter rating of the whole night, that says to me, well, you know what? That's not Adam Cole's fault. That's the way AEW uses them. You know, just because there is a little storyline doesn't mean it's a very memorable storyline. You know, there's a difference between having a storyline. Oh, you see, AEW doesn't do storylines? What are you talking about? Yeah, of course they do storylines. Do you really get to remember it 5 months from now? I mean, think about that. So Adam Cole, you know, some of what he does, you know, I'm just happy that he's back in the ring. But is he this big ratings draw? No. Not even MJF. MJF, his debut match on Collision. And with all due respect, they had him take on Kip Frog, whatever the guy's name was. And I'm like, but why even say he's making his Collision debut? Motherfucker is on Wednesday, and he wrestles on Wednesday. Why, because he's wrestling 3 days later? You know, it just, I don't know. It fell flat. It didn't draw. It didn't draw nothing. I like Daniel Garcia. I like him doing the dance stuff. It's kind of, it's not on the level of what Dean Malenko was trying to do in WWE in the early 2000s. They tried to make Dean Malenko have a little bit of a personality. Remember when wasn't he in bed with Lita one time? He was the ladies' man. It didn't work. Daniel Garcia, they're trying to give him a little bit of a personality. I like that he's, you know, having fun with this. Daniel Garcia, I think, listen, when Kevin and I go about a year ago to now, Daniel Garcia's name will come up. And in my opinion, I think Daniel Garcia's stock has absolutely gone up in 1 year. Absolutely. Benjamin says Daniel Garcia is too small and not enough personality. I ask you this, with all due respect, too small and not enough personality for what? Did I say Daniel Garcia had to be world champion? Did I say Daniel Garcia had to main event a pay-per-view? No. All I said was Daniel Garcia, his stock has gone up. He's doing great. Dean Malenko, when he came to WWE, he wasn't going to main event unless he was the Radicals altogether. Not everybody main events. Not everybody headlines a pay-per-view. Not everybody is world champion. Never said those things about Daniel Garcia. Just like Solo Sikoa. Solo Sikoa, it's really interesting, you know, when you look at that dynamic. But in my honest opinion, as much as I like Solo Sikoa, and I have sung the praise way back before even NXT days, I can't picture him with the World Heavyweight Championship. I can't picture him. I mean, yeah, the crowd will pop and everything, and then what? And then what? Jey Uso. We had this conversation yesterday. Fucking Jey Uso, I've been saying for months, is the MVP of the Bloodline storyline. Not Roman Reigns, not Jimmy, not Paul, not and Sam, nobody. Jey Uso is the MVP of that storyline. He is the glue. He is the glue that allowed Sami Zayn to get where he was at. He was the glue that allowed Roman to go against Sami, to go with Sami, to go against Jimmy, to go with Jey Uso is the one. But Jey Uso is not winning that World Heavyweight Championship. We talked about it yesterday. It looks nice. I have the Photoshop. I showed it yesterday. It looks beautiful with him holding the undisputed WWE Universal Championship. All right, put him up against Brock Lesnar. Put him up against Cody Rhodes. Put him up against Bobby Lashley. Put him up against AJ Styles. Put him against Braun Strowman. Put him up against Seth Rollins. Put him up against Damian Priest. Do I really have that much suspension and disbelief that he's going to be all those motherfuckers? No, I don't. Sorry. He is probably going to go down as the greatest tag team of this generation. I know a lot of people thought the New Day early on. I think the Usos, when everything's said and done, will be the greatest tag team of this generation. And I don't even think it could be argued. So that is big shoes to fill. Just because he doesn't hold world champion doesn't mean that he's a letdown or a disappointment or his career is incomplete. Not everybody needs the world championship for their career to be complete. You look at some of the greatest of all time that never won the world heavyweight championship. Their careers are not incomplete. Sure, when I was a kid, I would have loved to see some of my favorites become world heavyweight champion. Never happened. When I look back at their career, hey, perfectly fine with me. Tristan says, Paisan, you got to tell me what's my favorite fast food restaurant. McDonald's. Yeah. Listen, we don't have Jack in the Box as far as I know. We used to have, I don't remember that, Checkers. Long time ago when I lived in Long Island, they had a Checkers. I thought that was good. But for me, McDonald's. I mean, up until they changed the oil like 15 years ago, I used to eat like 50 nuggets with no problem at all. I could still eat the nuggets now, even though the oil, they taste a little bit different. Their French fries, to me, are the best of all time. Even now, because I'm on keto, I've gone to McDonald's twice. I've eaten the hamburgers. I just take the bread out, have no ketchup. Me, McDonald's. Burger King, I don't like at all. I hate their fries. Their chicken nuggets suck. Their Whoppers are okay, but there's something weird about the Whoppers. I don't know. There's something weird about the Whoppers. Me, I'm a McDonald's guy. So, any update on Randy Orton returning to the ring? It's a lot. It's the same thing as Bray Wyatt. You realize that the boozers of the world, it's now been 7 weeks since they said Bray Wyatt's return is imminent. Like every few weeks, every month and a half, they throw it out there. So when it happens, see, we told you. It's the same thing about Randy Orton. The fact is, no one out there in the journalist world or the podcasting world has any ties to Randy Orton or his wife or his family or his close friends. Randy Orton has a lot of respect for pro wrestling and is not going to leak his shit to any Tom, Dick, or Harry. And Bray Wyatt, the same thing. So when these people put that shit out there, they are guessing. They see Randy Orton. They hear from Bob Orton. You remember when Cowboy Bob Orton, like 2 months ago, said that the doctors told Randy Orton that he should never return to the ring? What happened a couple of days later? Our sources tell us that Randy Orton's return, he may be officially retired. And then they segue into oh, yeah, and Bob Orton said this. Your source didn't tell you shit. Your sources told you, hey, Cowboy Bob Orton said something in an interview. That's what your sources did. Bray Wyatt and Randy Orton are the same thing. I personally think Randy Orton is returning. They start name dropping Randy. Listen, if Randy Orton was not going to return to wrestling in the ring, I think Randy Orton by now would have made a few appearances. The fact that you kept him off of TV entirely tells me that when he returns and makes an appearance, it's to wrestle. That's my honest opinion. Randy Orton would have been, at least WrestleMania, make some appearances. The fact that he is just incognito tells me he's returning. Bray Wyatt, I hope he returns. Bray Wyatt, there was a couple of things. There was some family stuff going on. The stuff with Barry Windham, people seem to forgot about. He had the surgery on his finger There was a little bit of mental health. There was creative stuff. There was a lot of different things with Bray Wyatt. It wasn't any one thing. So does Bray Wyatt return soon? Yeah, I think so. I'm not going to sit here and say it'll happen Monday, even though last week, gives the, we expected Edge to return to the ring. Didn't think it was going to happen this fast, but no, I think both Randy and Bray Wyatt will return. Shit, we just had the 10-year anniversary of the Wyatt family's main roster debut. I think it happened yesterday or Friday. We covered on the history show. 10 years already. I can't believe it. 10 years. Still remember that Don, Tony, and Kevin Castle show episode that night where we were calling out all those assholes in the front row that were going, Husky Harris, Husky Harris. Like, in reflection, like, what did you want someone to say? Oh, you're smart. Oh, you're cool. Like, for what? You just want to try to, get under the guy's skin? What, so he could stare at you and give you a dirty look? Then you tell your grandchildren, I was there that night. I saw Bray Wyatt's Wyatt family debut when Kane. And when he was at ringside, I called him Husky Harris, and he gave me this look like he wanted to give me the mandible claw. And you proud? But I will say this. I'll never forget MLW's first ever show. And the audio is there if you want to go check it out. Vampiro. When he was in the ring, if you listen closely, because the Blackhearts were special guests for MLW's first ever show in the ECW arena, and Shane Douglas took on Steve Corino that night, I believe. And when Vampiro was in the ring, if you listen close, you'll hear Oxycontin, Matt Zombie was chanting Vicodin, because he was supplying Vampiro with some stuff that day. And I don't know if the camera picked up on it, but he was chanting it, and Vampiro in the corner of his eyes, he looked at Matt Zombie, and he looked the other way. Timmy Austin, God rest it. Because at that time, that was when XPW was coming to the ECW arena. That's why we were there. We were going to flood all the cars with flyers. XPW came to the ECW arena a few months later. And then they gave the owners of the ECW arena enough money that they became exclusive there. And then that's why CZW was out and MLW was out. Everybody was out. And they were pissed the fuck off because of it. First name John with a question. Is CM Punk going to cheat to beat Ricky Starks in the Owen Hart final and turn heel? Cheating in the Owen Hart tournament would give him massive heat. I personally think Ricky Starks will win this. I feel that the Owen Hart tournament is treated with a lot of respect. CM Punk turning heel and mocking the tournament, you would have to mock the tournament, and I don't see that happening. I think CM Punk's graciousness to show that he is a team player, I think Ricky Starks is winning it. I really do. As of right now, I think Ricky Starks is winning this. There is a bullshit news report. I was going to talk about it Wednesday. I want to embarrass these people because it's blatantly false and they're trying to get trending because of it. I don't remember the name of the site, but we will definitely make fun of them on Wednesday. And it is a legit news site, too. They actually claim that CM Punk pitched an idea that he is in the blood and guts match. You imagine that? Next Wednesday? Yeah, CM Punk pitched an idea that he's in the blood and guts match with the Elite. Wait, who's going to be on the poll? The lawyers? Stupid. Very, very stupid. I see someone, Kevin, Milwaukee, with a 5 spot. Thank you, Kevin, for this. The one thing missing from the tribal chief is the Samoa Joe customary tribal cock across his face to complete the look. Can you imagine? Listen, Roman Reigns got tattoos. Face tattoo, nah. I mean, listen, I remember when High Chief Peter Maivia got all the tattoos around 80. I don't remember what year it was. Maybe 79. And we became a High Chief, and he got all these tattoos, and that shit looked painful. And you see The Rock with all of his tattoos and Roman Reigns with those tattoos. That's celebrating their heritage. Samoa Joe, I mean, I understand. Obviously, by now, we understand it. We know what they were trying to go with the tattoo. But unfortunately, it looked like a penis. It's, I hate, oh God. I hate to use this comparison, but I saw it over the weekend and I gotta. Anybody know what statue I'm talking about? I don't know if it's Philadelphia. I don't remember what state it was. They erected a statue. I know who the person is. I'm just not saying the name. We'll let the chat room say it. Someone who was killed by mistreatment of cops, police brutality. On an arrest, this person was killed. And they built this gigantic statue commemorating this person who died because of police violence, brutality. And the statue has this person like hugging like somebody, and the way it looks like a reproductive organ. It just, people looked at it and they were like, you didn't fucking see this when you were putting this stuff together? It's not Martin Luther King. It's a little bit newer than that. Go Google it on Twitter. Just type in statue, controversial statue, looks like a body part. You'll see what I'm talking about. You know, when you're doing a tattoo or a statue or something like that, you know, you have to like look at it like, wait a minute, you know, something just doesn't look right about it. Just go on social media. Unfortunately, I can't post pictures here, but you'll see what I'm talking about. Samoa Joe, it was bad because the tattoo came out of nowhere. And at the same time, they're doing storylines where he's got a knife and somebody's upside down and there's a kidnapping and he's in catering. And that's the time when I made the credit card, the Visa custom Capital One card. People don't know about, what, 17 years ago? 15 years ago? Capital One lets you create your own custom credit card. And I legitimately sent in a design, and it was just Samoa Joe's midsection. And he had more rolls than a bakery. He had all these lines on his stomach, and it looked awful. And my credit card had just his stomach on it, and then I photoshopped the word Samoa Joe on the bottom, make it look like his credit card. I still have the picture online somewhere. Just type in Don Tony Samoa Joe credit card. I'm sure it shows up on Google. The tribal thing didn't look good at all. It looked awful. Oh, it is MLK. Okay, John, you're right. You are right. It is MLK. I mixed it up with another statue. The other statue looks fucked up too. Yeah, it's the Martin Luther King statue. Yeah, because why would, I'll say it, why would George Floyd be hugging a kid? You know what I mean? Like, of course he had a checkered background, but he didn't deserve to die because of it. Yeah, it's MLK with a kid. The way, or he's hugging a woman or something, the way he's hugging it looks like a body part. Yeah. And it's in Boston. Thank you, Jeff. Look up MLK statue Boston. You'll see what I'm talking about. Yo-Yo is asking me, when do I think Austin Theory loses the title? I think it's at SummerSlam, and I think it's against LA Knight. We've been talking about LA Knight winning the United States title now for a few weeks. I think it's happening. LA Knight don't need no briefcase. Don't worry about it. If LA Knight gets the briefcase, he ain't winning the world championship. I don't care how loud of a pop he's getting right now, he ain't winning a world championship. He has no momentum yet where he's on this long winning streak that, just because he's popular doesn't mean that, creative-wise, you suddenly make him completely undefeatable. He's building into a babyface organically. Yeah, LA Knight just beat up Rey Mysterio. On Monday, LA Knight stunned Hit Row. See where I'm going with that? LA Knight, they're just doing it organically. I saw people complaining, oh, how could you do that to LA Knight? Give him a spot pre-show. You know what? We get to see this stuff online. WWE put it on YouTube. WWE put it on social media. At least he got the spot. Oh, but it didn't happen on TV. It still happened. It still happened. I don't need to see it on Fox or the USA Network to say, oh, they're finally giving LA Knight a push. Just do it, man. If I can't see it on the TV all the time, that's fucking fine with me. Oh, well, yeah, TV. Don't worry about it. Listen to how over he is. It's okay. I think he wins it at SummerSlam. He's going to come out and confront Austin Theory soon. It's going to happen. Grayson Waller does not need a title right now. Grayson Waller just had his first match back. That's almost like the Tony D'Angelo stuff. I remember when Tony D'Angelo had his debut match in NXT. And go back, maybe some people had the balls to leave their tweets up. They photoshopped the NXT Heavyweight Championship on Tony D'Angelo after the first match that he had. When you Google his entire wrestling career history from that night, you realize, oh, it's his first ever match. People were already proclaiming him the NXT Heavyweight Championship. He had one fucking match. That's cool. When people want to see that, that's awesome. You want fans to want that. Right now, Grayson Waller just had one match. It was against Edge. Very, very good. Take your time with Grayson Waller. I wouldn't elevate him to the next level until Survivor Series at minimum. Just let him continue doing what he's doing. You don't want the Bloodline, Cody Rhodes, LA Knight, Grayson Waller, this person, all come to a head around the same time, let's say Survivor Series or the Royal Rumble, and then you got to be like, oh, wait a minute. They can't all be at the main event. We got to pick. There's no rush with some of those guys. Take your time. Relax. It'll be fine. Cody Rhodes is going to finish the story. You don't bother trying to change the story because you will be left with a huge letdown. You had people milking you, literally, grabbing your prostate and milking you for 7 months that LA Knight was winning that briefcase. Whenever somebody wanted attention to their podcast or wanted views on their Patreon or wrestling news site, they would be like, oh, LA Knight, WWE creative. LA Knight is the front runner to win Money in the Bank. LA Knight, Money in the Bank. LA Knight's winning a briefcase. WWE, blah, 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 blah. Fightful was the only news outlet out there that was very, very straight up with this, like, hey, right now it could go one of three ways. And it was one of two ways until Logan Paul entered the picture. They pretty much said that the two front runners are Damian Priest and LA Knight. But at least they were honest and said, WWE right now, the front runner is Damian Priest and LA Knight. They never said LA Knight's winning it. You didn't have that zero losers out there, XERO, whatever. That's the biggest fraud of them all. They fucking roll the dice, 50-50 shot at being right. You get 7 out of 10 right, you sound like, hey, he doesn't get everything right, but he gets more things right than usual. You got fucking 50-50 chance of being right. Why is it on everything that we do here when 99% right? Honestly, how many of you out there that don't like me too much, that are just waiting to be like, oh, DT, you were fucking wrong? If I get a prediction or I give an opinion and it ends up happening different, that's fine. I'll accept that. But I don't come up here and say, guys, wrestling news, LA Knights winning that briefcase. That's it. I do know for a fact Cody is finishing the story. WWE already knows how WrestleMania is going down. It's just a matter of how we get to that point. Just like Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens, they were going to main event WrestleMania, night one, win those tag titles. There was never any doubt. And then people are like, oh, no, the women are going to close out night one. Oh, Kevin Owens, Sami Zayn, they're not main eventing. And then he made it all this controversy, and it was all fake. It was all fake. We even called it out for being fake, and it was fake. Certain things are facts. WWE knows. No matter how over Sami Zayn would have gotten, he wasn't winning an Elimination Chamber. No matter how over Jey Uso is getting, or gets to SummerSlam, he's not winning that championship. No matter how over Drew McIntyre got at Clash at the Castle, and I even said Drew should have won the championship. Now I feel different about it. I thought last year's SummerSlam, that was the pinnacle of the Street Profits. I guarantee you, when Kevin and I talk about the Street Profits on Tuesday, their stock has gone down the last 12 months. 1 year ago for SummerSlam, they had arguably one of the best tag team matches of the year, month and a half before that. People were calling it 5 stars with the Usos. That led to SummerSlam. Remember the vignettes? They came out. I think they were wearing white. Everybody's like, these motherfuckers are winning the tag titles tonight. And they didn't. Because all along, Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn was the destination. We just didn't see it yet. Obviously, we had no idea that Sami was going to become as beloved as he was. But they saw something. They didn't pull the trigger with the Street Profits, and it's been downhill ever since, with all due respect. All right, if you see me going like this, it's because, I don't know, for some reason, like, you remember when Roddy Piper used to do this? He used to get a lot of, like, his ear would close. I don't know if you ever see him cut promos. Sometimes he'll go like this. I have that right now. It's a little annoying. I feel like pops in my ear. Pop, pop, goes the weasel, the weasel. Pop goes the weasel because the weasel goes pop. Roderick Howard, if I ran my own wrestling company, would I revolve it around a babyface world champ or a heel world champ? It depends who I have. Depends on who I have. If it's an indie wrestling promotion, you go with a babyface champ more than anything because you want people to go home happy. You don't want people to go home feeling fucked or really let down or feel that they were teased, this and that, because you can't depend on people to come every show. You know, people go one night, they had a good time, but if you don't have storylines of it, indie wrestling is a lot harder to create good storylines because you can't predict what your next audience is going to be. ECW is a little different. UWF is a little different. Some other promotions, it was a little different. But when you have an indie wrestling show, trust me, some of my friends ran their own promotions, and a lot of them failed because they tried to build storylines, and in the next show, they would have a different crowd. You'd have some people that were carryovers, but it's a lot different. So me, probably more of a baby face because you want fans to go home happy. If they had a really good experience, they had a really good time. When you announce your return a month and a half later, you hope that those people are home. Hey, honey, remember that wrestling show we went last month? Oh, yeah, the kids loved it. Hey, they're going to be coming back in 2 weeks. You want to go? That might escalate the chances. You don't want to be like, hey, honey, remember that wrestling show we went last month? Yeah. You remember that cocksucker retained the belt and the kids went home crying? You want to go next week? Fuck them. I'd probably go with a baby face. Mark got his tickets for Fastlane in Indianapolis. Very cool. Very cool. Very cool. Fastlane, listen, I don't think we're going to get a bad premium live event this year. Just like I don't think we're going to get a bad AEW pay-per-view. When was the last time that we truly had a bad wrestling pay-per-view or premium live event? Honestly, I can't remember. I can't remember. You know, every year people are like, oh, this WrestleMania looks like it sucks, this WrestleMania. And usually it turns out to be decent. I can't remember the last time we had a pay-per-view like, you know, it kind of sucked. Money in the Bag 2022. All right, maybe. Maybe I got to go look back at that card and see. I don't remember saying, wow, this pay-per-view sucked. Did I see the Dave Meltzer interview with Chris Van Vliet, and what are my thoughts? Rocky Red, I have not seen the interview with Dave Meltzer and Chris Van Vliet. I will definitely check it out. Chris, I don't know if Chris had Dave on. Like, is it a retrospect of Dave's career? Did Dave have him on just to talk a little wrestling? My gut feeling is that Chris Van Vliet had Dave on to reflect a little bit on his career. I'll go seek it out. I'll talk about it later this week. I have not heard about it. I haven't seen anybody talk about it. And I got to say this, even though I was going to talk about it Wednesday, I got to say this now. Are you surprised at how little people are talking about the AEW video game? I mean, I know there's some podcasters out there that are doing videos just to get some ad revenue, you know, and they're trying to make this game come off epic amazing. But, and I'm not knocking the game. I'm a little surprised on how quiet, even like my feed, and I follow like 2,000 people, and yes, a lot of them are muted, but I have not seen anything. I mean, there is a little noise, but I would have expected a hell of a lot more buzz right now about that fucking video game. I mean, I would have thought they would have touted it a little bit more on television. It just seems like it's really gone quiet. And yes, I know that there's some kinks in the armor. I think some of that will be addressed and fixed. But I'm a little surprised at how quiet, how muted the audience is right now. And again, there are people that are on YouTube just to get ad revenue. They'll talk about anything just to get ad revenue. Hey, there's a segment where I peed in the bathroom and, you know, somebody peed on my foot. And next thing I know, I'm fighting in the ring. And I'm having a hardcore match. You know, like just anything for ad revenue. That doesn't mean that there's buzz. You know, I don't feel that excitement. I don't see people out there, yo, fucking playing the game right now with my friends. It's wow, you've done this, that. I don't see it. I don't see it. I saw it for months, especially the last 2 months leading into it. I don't see it now. Let's see. Somebody pointed out to me that when I was joking about Survivor Series coming to Chicago, that the Allstate Arena is not in a bad neighborhood. It's like the suburban area of Chicago. I say this with all due respect. Here in New York, Barclays Arena, where WWE comes a lot, almost nobody lives near the building. Madison Square Garden, almost nobody that goes to the events lives right by the Garden. Nassau Coliseum, there's a college nearby. There's not that many people that live in the town right next to the Coliseum. Everybody comes from different areas. So just because the Allstate Arena is in a better neighborhood of Chicago doesn't mean that everybody going to that show lives in that better neighborhood. You know, that's kind of the point I was making the other day. But Wembley is not worse. That's why I don't think anybody should be concerned about Wembley. WrestleMania is coming to Wembley. You know, somebody said to me earlier on YouTube, oh, well, they've teased before that they were going to, you know, consider WrestleMania in an area and they didn't do it. I said, oh, yeah, name me one time that WWE had a Hall of Famer or big star that's currently not wrestling travel to a different country, interrupt the pay-per-view live, and tease the fans that they want to bring WrestleMania there. Tell me the last time they did that. They didn't do that for Japan. I looked it up. You can't. There is no place. All right. Car 203 says, DT, there's always an online debate as far as who is the greatest manager of all time, Bobby Heenan or Paul Heyman. Paul is killing it right now, but he's got to go with the brain. I agree with you. I have always loved Paul Heyman. I had the privilege of doing a little work for that. I know people like, oh, he's bringing it up again. Listen, Paul Heyman is responsible for me having some awesome years being a wrestling fan in the mid-90s, even before that with the Dangerous Alliance and everything else. Paul Heyman is awesome. Love his work in the Bloodline. Love his work as the advocate for Brock Lesnar. Loved when he went to the WWF, even though, you know, a lot of people got stiffed with ECW in the bankruptcy. Was very, very bitter when ECW went out of business. That guy ate, slept, shit ECW, even though he mishandled the finances. Awesome advocate, awesome manager. In the end, though, I got to go with Bobby Heenan still. Paul Heyman is awesome on the mic. His visuals, his facial reactions, the way you believe that he is truly feeling how he's, even at Money in the Bank, when Kayla Braxton interviewed him outside of Roman's locker room during the pre-show, and Paul Heyman had tears in his eyes, and he was crying. You felt that guy could fucking do it. I think because of how exclusive he has been. You know, the Dangerous Alliance was 35 years ago, 33 years ago, whatever it was. You know, Paul Heyman has been primarily Brock Lesnar, Roman Reigns. That's it. I don't want to just say that's it, but that's pretty much it. Bobby Heenan, though, I mean, they put him with the fucking Brooklyn Brawler. And that's not a shot on the Brooklyn Brawler. But they put him with the Brooklyn Brawler, and it felt like Brooklyn Brawler was a little bit elevated. Bobby Heenan is just in a class by himself. Bobby Heenan inspired me to do, when I joked about my indie wrestling crap, even with the X-Lax stuff, the night that I put all those X-Lax in the ring and got threatened to get my ass kicked and got pelted with bottles and hot dogs and everything else, in the back of my mind, I will never do another show again if I'm lying. In the back of my mind, I kept thinking to myself, Bobby Heenan's our video shoot interview. Bobby Heenan said that when the cameras are on there, you act like how you would act in real life. If you're going to jump over the guardrail and do whatever you can to get out of Dodge, you do it. You don't do like the horrible WWE stuff for the last 20 years. Like when you're in the ring, especially if it was a woman, let's be honest, there's a woman in the ring, and then Kane's music hits, and then the explosion, and he's walking down the ring, and it's like a bad horror film. Instead of the girl running out of the ring, going over the guardrail or having somebody help her and get out of Dodge, no, she's in the corner going like this. It's like a bad horror film. You ever see that spoof commercial where, like there's a killer and all these college people like, I don't know what to do. Oh my God, we're all going to die. Well, why don't we just go in a running car that's like right next to us? Like, Bobby Heenan, when somebody went to kick his ass, he did everything that you and I would have done if that same wrestler charged us. So even the stupid shit that I was doing, in the back of my mind at that very moment, I was thinking about his R video shoot interview when he said, that camera's going, you do everything like you would do in real life. And I almost got my ass kicked because of it. But Bobby Heenan, I give the edge over Paul Heyman. And you want to know something? I think deep down inside, I think Paul Heyman would say the same thing. I think he would say the same thing. Bobby Heenan, just very, very, very important. If Paul Heyman would have managed more people in the last 20, 25 years, I might feel a little different. And don't say Cesaro or CM Punk or anything like that. That really doesn't count that much. In the end, we're going to remember Paul Heyman the last 20 years, Brock Lesnar, Roman Reigns. Pretty much it. Okay. How long are we going? We're at 75 minutes already. Holy shit. Tristan has asked, do I remember my experience with the Chris Benoit tragedy? Share my story. I'll sum it up like this. If anybody that's not aware, I forget what date it was, but I don't know, July 25th. It might even be this week coming up. I think it is this week, or it might have been last week. I did a podcast that night. Myself, Kevin Castle, Joey 924, Black Moses, Smoked Out. I don't know if there was anybody else. It's still online. Why do I keep thinking June 25th, 2007? Is it June 7th? Can't be June 7th. That's too soon, too long ago. I don't know why I keep thinking June 25th, 2007. Oh, I think he means June 2007, not June 7th. If you go to my website, dontony.com, in the search box, just type in the words Benoit tragedy. Make a long story short, ever since 1997, on Monday nights at 11 o'clock, sometimes 11:30, I would do, at that time, a hotline report. Later on, a podcast. Around 2002, 2003, we started doing podcasting online. And so we were always doing shows at 11 o'clock on Mondays. So when the Benoit tragedy happened, we were planning a tribute for Chris Benoit that night. We went into that show paying tribute to Chris Benoit. We thought that he was murdered along with his family. By the end of the show, we were spitting on Chris Benoit. We went about probably like 4.5 hours, and that episode is online. So again, go to dontony.com, click on Benoit. I've always thought about putting it on YouTube. The problem is that the audio quality is not very good. Our audio quality in 2007 is completely different than what it is today. But it's eerie, because in real time, we were getting reactions. We were getting news. Halfway through the show, we found out that Chris Benoit killed his family. Then we were trying to understand why. And we were taking live calls as well. It is a weird, wild, chilling podcast. And if you notice, there's nobody else. We're the only show that covered the Benoit tragedy and covered it in real time. It's pretty fucking wild. The audio's out there if you want to go check it out. But that was crazy, man, because we went into that show. And I do remember, I haven't listened to that show. I was going to try to enhance the audio recently. I didn't get a chance to do it. But I will say this. I do remember adding a disclaimer at the beginning of the show, because when we first started the show, we were paying tribute. So I could only imagine somebody tuning into that podcast even a week after the tragedy, and they hear the show, oh, welcome to the Minority Report, we're paying tribute to Chris Benoit. People would be like, the fuck are these people paying tribute to him for? He killed his family. I had to add a disclaimer at the beginning of the show that everybody, look, when we started the show, including WWE, everybody was paying tribute to Chris Benoit. Halfway through the show, we found out he killed his family. By the end of the show, it was surreal. It was very surreal. Some people say the audio is not that bad. Trust me. You put it on YouTube, it's kind of shoddy. I could definitely enhance it. It's 4.5 hours of enhancing. It's not as easy. You can't just simply run 1 or 2 codecs and just sit back and let the computer do the work. There's a lot of leveling. There's a lot of audio. My audio quality was a little better than some of the other hosts who were on a regular telephone at the time, cordless phone. It's got to be improved if it goes on there. So people are, you know what? I'm going to say this because it is controversial. It might sound cold, but me, I take pride that since 97, I tell you how I feel, even if it's unpopular, even if it upsets someone. To this day, we will never know why Chris Benoit did what he did. The weird thing is that my view at the end of that tragedy 16 years ago, my opinion has not changed. We've learned about CTE. We've learned about his brain. We've learned about a lot of things since then. And I feel for the family and the friends of Chris Benoit that still love him and want to remember him in a positive, at the most positive way possible. He killed his family. But, you know, it's got to be tormenting that they will never have the answer. You know, can't be Chris. He's not like that. It can't be. I totally feel for them. I can only imagine what that must feel like to have a very close relative that you love that has, you know, that is, just does that. You want to believe that he was not in his right mind. He was not this or not. But we'll never, at the end of the day, we'll never know the answer. We'll never know. My gut feeling, again, people are going to get angry, but I said this the night of the tragedy. My feelings have never changed. One thing that we did know this prior to the Benoit tragedy, is that Nancy filed for divorce. They were going to get divorced at least one time before, and then they didn't get divorced. They had a lot of marital problems. I don't know them personally. I didn't know them personally. I don't know any of their immediate family members. But my feeling, I try to just put myself in a real life situation. Forget about Chris Benoit, the wrestler. Forget about Nancy, the valet, the wife, the manager, whatever. I try to look at it as my neighbor or somebody else going through marital problems. And the one thing that was always said, one thing, she did not deserve to die. But the one thing that was always said back then is that Nancy knew how to push people's buttons. Like, when you saw an ECW as woman, even in WCW to an extent, and you felt like, you know, she could like just totally annihilate you with insults. Like, she could talk. Very sweet woman, but she could really give it to somebody verbally. And I'm not just talking about cutting promos. Like, she knew how to push people's buttons. My gut feeling is that the night this happened, the only thing that I could possibly put together is that she threatened to leave him, take his son, take everything that they owned, expose him with all his steroids and everything else, and show the world that this guy's taking all his freaky steroid shit. And he snapped out of rage and killed her. I think they had this crazy ass fight. Didn't they say that things were broken in the house? You know, but the bedroom, you know, like when you start looking at the police report and everything surrounding the son, everything was clean. Everything was set up. Everything was organized. The Bible. And you just close your eyes and you think of it like a bad Lifetime movie. And I try to like look at all that stuff and put it together. And I always felt that maybe she threatened to leave him and expose him at that time, pretty high up there on the card, and had a huge fight, and out of rage, she killed her. And totally lost it, totally snapped. Once that happened, totally out of his mind. That's it. You know, you have that breakdown, you go to that level, you just point of no return. Why he killed his son? No excuse. I don't care if it's, I didn't want my son to grow up knowing that his father killed his mother and killed himself. You know, like, that's still not an excuse. I'll never understand why he killed his son. Like, I try to understand why he killed his wife, but I'll never understand why he killed his son. It's awful. It's awful. That was my thought by the end of the show that night, and it's never changed. It has never changed. I'm sure the steroids, I'm sure, you know, other issues with him, brain trauma, you know, I'm sure that the slightest little thing could set him off. I've seen people personally with roid rage. I've seen people personally who would have rage because of taking painkillers, not even taking steroids. When was the last time you heard about anybody getting rage because they take pain medication? It is a legit thing. You take Vicodin, you take Oxycontin, it does cause behavioral issues. It's legit, but you never ever hear anybody talk about that. That is what I came up with that night. It's never changed. But again, we'll never know. I don't want anybody to say to me, DT, I think you're right, because I'm not right. We will never know. The only way we would have known is if he would have left a detailed letter. Not just I'm sorry, but a detailed letter saying why. I don't think Chris Benoit should be celebrated for the simple reason that because we don't know why. You know, but at the same time, though, if you listen, I will never say to someone you shouldn't watch this wrestling event because Chris Benoit is on it. I watched The Naked Gun. It's one of my favorite movies. I still watch it on occasion. And come on, O.J. Simpson is all over that movie. You're going to tell me not to watch the movie because Nordberg is in it? You know, you will not see me, like celebrate Nordberg, but, but we'll never know. We will never know. All right. Let's finish this in a couple of minutes. We're already almost at 90 minutes. I definitely want to put this up as early as possible. Props to everybody who was with us last week. Last week was it was really interesting. I got, I don't plug the email as much as I used to because some people were just really, really abusing it. And not only that, getting crazy ass emails about advertising this and plugging this thing and plugging that thing. And, can you do, and it's got a little bit ridiculous. So that's why I pushed the community section and Patreon more than anything. There's two very easy outlets to send or DM me on Twitter. But I got a lot of feedback from last week's show, and it was all positive. It was just a really different show last week. This week kind of, picked up where we left off, but last week was different. I don't know, it was different. It was in the chat room 2 weeks in a row. I drank all my coffee. All right. So let's do like 2 or 3 more questions and let's get out of here. Charlie Conway is saying, comment, lawmakers ask the FDA to investigate prime Logan Paul's drink that the caffeine equals 6 colas. I mean, I'll say this. A prime drink is much bigger than a can of Coke. I'm not defending Logan Paul here. This is just my immediate reaction. If you ever look at Logan, and tomorrow I'm going to show everyone that clip that I was telling you, how Logan Paul's drink is selling for over $20 a can overseas in Singapore. I have the footage. I have it ready. I'll show you tomorrow. And I'm waiting until tomorrow because Logan Paul's going to be on Raw. But, you look at the can. The can's a big fucking can. It looks like it's almost the size of 2 cans. So if his prime drink was cut down into 1 can, that would be the equivalent of 3 sodas. That's not a big deal. And if the FDA is going to bring up Logan Paul's drink saying 6 sodas, they should investigate a 2-liter bottle of Coke. Because doesn't a 2-liter bottle of Coke have 5 or 6 times the caffeine of 1 can? I know somebody's going to be, well, duh, that's because there's 6 cans of soda in a 2-liter bottle. Exactly. Logan Paul's drink is not the size of a can of Coke. If the FDA is investigating, that's stupid. I think it's stupid. Listen, about O.J. Simpson, I see there's a little bit of back and forth online. For many years, I thought O.J. Simpson didn't do it. For real. Until I learned about forensic evidence. And no, I don't believe that LAPD planted O.J. Simpson's blood. You know, and if it doesn't fit, you must have quit. In 1995, yeah, you could believe that to an extent. Once I started learning about forensics, forensic files helped, and unsolved mysteries, and then you learn about science and everything. Once I learned about percentages, I realized he did it. He did it. If that same trial happened today, he'd be found guilty in a matter of an hour. Technology and science has developed so much in 30 years. So, yeah, in 1995, legally, he was found not guilty. But, you know, that doesn't, look at how many unsolved murders from 30, 40, 50 years ago are being solved now because of familiar DNA. Familiar DNA. Remember that girl, Katrina Vetrano? Good friend of our family. My father is very good friends with her father. She was the one that was murdered in Howard Beach, Queens. And how they got the DNA was they did familiar DNA or something. Like they were able to like get some DNA because I think the guy who did it, his DNA wasn't in the database. So they did it and it led back to some relatives. And by process of elimination, they got him. And at that time, and that was only a few years ago, people were calling it racist. And because nobody knew what familiar DNA is. Now, if you pay attention on the news, or you look at any of these true crime YouTube channels, you're learning about all of these unsolved murders from the 70s, the 60s, the 80s that are being solved now, not because they don't have the person's DNA. They're not in the database. So they're running it. And because of Ancestry DNA and 50andMe or whatever those fucking things are, when you send in your DNA to try to learn about your family history, you're also giving permission that your DNA gets stored in a database. So you could commit a crime and say, oh, they don't have my fingerprints. They don't have my DNA. I'll be scot-free. Well, guess what? They put it in that database and the DNA shows my mother, my father, my sister, my brother, my neck, my back, my pussy, and my crack. You know, like, I'm still in trouble. That's a major deterrent now. That's why you see some crimes. It's why you see so many shootings now. You don't see as many deep stabbings. You hear mostly shootings because shootings are the best chance of you getting away without your DNA being at the scene. You do stabbings, you cut your finger while you're stabbing someone, you get a little bit of blood, you hold on to a door as you leave a fingerprint. You know, you have a much bigger chance. And even if your DNA is not in a database, your family members are. What are you going to do? I mean, you grow up, you're going to say, Auntie M, Uncle Joe, Daddy, Mommy, Sis, Bro. Don't ever do that fucking Ancestry DNA. You know, I'll Google our history. Like, you can't control your relatives from not sending in DNA. Trust me, that is a huge deterrent. You see some of these whack jobs being interviewed on YouTube that were lifelong criminals. There's people that are wearing like masks and distorting their voice that admitted to committing a lot of assault, if you know what I mean, and said that they stopped because they realized that, you know, now with DNA, you know, it may not track back to you, but it might track back to Uncle Tom, you know, or Auntie Loeb, you know, like, it's crazy, man. All right. Let's do 2 more questions and let's get out of here. Let's see. Let's make them good. So next week is what? The 16th of July. Okay, so we have the 16th. Wow, we end up with 5 Sundays in July. So the last Sunday the last Sunday is SummerSlam. So the last Sunday, I don't know what we're going to be doing. Oh, wait, no, SummerSlam's on a Saturday. So we probably could still do a sit-down episode, but we'll probably have wrestling on the brain because of SummerSlam. So that last Sunday, we'll probably be doing wrestling, so. All right. So we have no more questions. All right. Roderick is asking, what ECW program would I recommend to a new viewer on Peacock or another viewing source? If you want to watch old school wrestling, I love summer and winter of 1995 to start. Unless you want to see your RVDs and Sabu's and the ECW invasion, bleeding into the main product, 98, the Dudleys, that's fine. You could go like 98 is a good year. But for me, I like to start around the fall of 1995 because you got the early introduction of the hardcore matches where you would use weapons. Besides chairs and Singapore canes and tables, you use Nintendos, you use cheese graters, you use stop signs, you use vacuum cleaners, you use dolls, you used golf clubs. That doesn't mean that they originated it, but that's when you would first get that. But at the same time, you got very early Rey Mysterio, Juventud Guerrera, Psychosis, Conan, La Parka. Then you have Terry Funk, who could still do it. You got Mick Foley, who, that is doing the greatest promos in the history of this generation's wrestling. His ECW promos, trying to get Tommy Dreamer to go to WCW, greatest series of promos than anybody's ever done. So, and then you lead into November to Remember 1995 with the November Rain music videos. That's something that nobody was really doing. Doesn't mean that they were the first person to do it, because I remember AWA, I have a VHS tape of the AWA where Road Warrior Hawk is rapping. Road Warrior Hawk, well, he's rapping. I mean, there's some music videos to wrestling. The ECW did not originate it. They made it popular and big. So that's where I would start. Because I could go pop in fall of 1995 into the winter of 1995, and I could binge watch the whole weekend if I wanted. SummerSlam is August 5th. Okay. All right. So it is not the last Sunday in July. So that means July 30th. Yeah, we can do a non-wrestling show. So yeah, July 30th, we're trying to do the last Sunday of every month to not be, we could have some wrestling, but the focus will be non-wrestling. So that will be July 30th. So then the following week will be. So what that means then is that Kevin and I will be doing the 11th of July, which will be this Tuesday. And then he and I will be doing, I think the 25th, which might have something to do with everybody online. I haven't figured out how we're going to do that yet. But then again, on the 1st of August might be the day that we do predictions. So I got to talk to him to see what he wants to do and what he can do, because he works also. So maybe we'll do all three of those weeks. We'll see. So do I think WCW could have survived in the 2000s? Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we had Air Paris and AJ Styles that were just coming up. I mean, there weren't going to be any cornerstone, but, you had, 3 Count. You had Booker T, Scott Steiner. You look at everybody who came over from WCW. It's just obviously there would have had to been a complete reorganization. And I don't mean everybody gives up their titles and you award new champions, because they did that one night with Bischoff and Vince Russo together and it didn't work out. They had enough. Yeah. Because NWA TNA started in 2002. Everybody got to remember that. NWA TNA started about a year after WCW went out of business. And a lot of their talents were from WCW and some indies. There was some people on the indies that WCW could have brought in. Would have been really interesting if they would have ended up somehow getting CM Punk. If WCW was around in 2004, 2005, what's saying that they couldn't have gotten a lot of those Ring of Honor guys? Instead of, tapping into the ECW roster and stealing all the Lucha Libre guys, ECW was out of business. They could have tapped into a lot of Ring of Honor guys. I think WCW, if it would have been reorganized, absolutely could have stuck around. Sure. Why not? I mean, WCW, went out of business. TNA came, and TNA, it was interesting how they handled the weekly pay-per-views. It was a lot of Jeff Jarrett, Jerry Jarrett, their Envision, and others as well. Yeah, I think WCW would have survived. I don't know if they would have survived to 2010. I don't know about that. But, remember, a lot of people had left to go to WWE, but there was a lot of people that did not leave. Think about all the wrestlers who stood at home and waited out their contract in WCW before going to WWE. They had a lot of people still on that roster that did not go to WWE right away that could have still done it a little bit. All right. I'm going to jet out of here. So I want to thank everybody for joining me tonight. If you enjoyed the show, give it a thumbs up. Those algorithms that everybody talks about, it is real. It applies to everybody, whether you're a big channel or a small channel. So if you're not a subscriber yet, please do. By the end of next year, I would freaking love it if we got to 50,000. I don't know if that's going to happen. Where are we at right now? Like 31,200, 31,300. And again, still about 85 to 90% of everybody who tunes in on the audio side only. So the video is just an extra extension of what I do. It'll never be a replacement, but it's fun, when we do it as well. And yeah, if you know anyone out there that would like the channel, let them know about it. I will be announcing, I want to make everyone know, I didn't forget about the predictions contest for Money in the Bank. I have the winners. I'm going to make them official Tuesday because Kevin and I will be live Tuesday, and obviously our entire Patreon audience is going to be tuning in live, and then everybody online will be tuning in afterwards, so I'll make the announcements Tuesday night. So someone from Patreon is going to win 50, and someone from our YouTube channel members is going to win 50. So, and who knows, somebody that is a patron and a YouTube channel member, they may win both. That has happened once before. So much love, everybody. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Pleasure as always. I'm glad that we had some fun convo. And, again, you won't get in any trouble. Nobody's going to call you out on it. But if you want, just for fun, I'm going to disconnect from the show now. When the comment section pops up and you're able to leave a comment, tell me, who do you believe, in your opinion, who is the sexiest, most attractive woman in AEW, in WWE, and in NXT? You are not sexist. You're not mansplaining, whatever people want to say. You're just appreciating the beauty of someone. And yes, beauty is not just skin and appearance, but you're acknowledging those out there who do take pride and who do work hard on how they look. And again, you look at WWE, especially with their social media photos of the week, a lot of these women are posing, showing off their bodies. They're not trying to get anybody sexually aroused. Maybe some are, but they're showing off. Hard work, man. Charlotte Flair is the greatest excuse. Charlotte Flair may not be the most attractive woman in WWE, but if you ever look at her photos, she fucking shows off her abs. She shows off how hard she works out in the gym. Her and Andrade pose together. They're not posing to embarrass anybody. They're posing and say, this is hard work. We're just acknowledging the hard work. So very curious to see what you all say. And maybe we'll recap it next week and we'll see, who got like the most choices, the most votes out of each division. Hopefully enough of you vote. Just post. We'll see. And there's no wrong answer. There's no wrong answer. Just think about it. Look at their roster pages if you need to be reminded of some of the women. And I'll leave you with this promise. Next Sunday, I will give you my 3. No creep. Not saying any creepy way. I remember when Scott Hall complimented Paige back then, and people were calling him a creep. She even came to his defense. People were calling him creepy because of the age difference. It was sad, and I've thought about that since. So no creepiness. We'll just acknowledge it. I will tell you next week. I'll think about it during the week, and I will tell you next week who I think is the most attractive woman in WWE, NXT, AEW. And I'm sure my choices are probably going to be different than a lot of yours. So everyone, it's been real. Much love as always. I'll catch you all again. Hopefully you join me Monday night after Raw, 11:05 p.m. Eastern, right here on YouTube, 11:05, or afterwards, DonTony.com.
As far back as I can remember, I always wanted to be a podcaster. For me to live any other way was nuts. To me, those goody-good people who worked shitty jobs for bum paychecks and took the subway to work every day and worried about their bills were dead. I mean, they were suckers. They had no balls. If I wanted something, I just took it. I ran everything. I paid the bills. I paid the host. I even paid the masked maniac. Everybody had their hands out. Everything was for the taking. We always called each other good fellas. You would always hear from somebody. You're gonna like Don Tony. He's alright. He's a good fella. He's one of us. But if you're part of my crew, nobody ever tells you they're gonna get rid of you. It doesn't happen that way. There weren't any arguments or curses like in the movies. See, your haters come with smiles. They come as your friends, the people who've claimed they care the most for your life. And now that's all over. And that's the best part. Today everything is different. There's lots of action. I don't have to wait around for everything like everyone else. Oh, I didn't get the vaccine? Fuck you, vaccine me. Oh, your delivery guy has COVID? Fuck you, feed me. Right after I moved here, I ordered egg noodles and ketchup, and I got spaghetti with meat sauce. I'm no longer an average nobody, while they get to live the rest of their lives like a bunch of schnooks.